Ever feel like your workouts are working against you? In this episode, we break down cycle syncing, what it is, why it matters, and how training with your hormones can change your energy, mood, and results.
Hi, I'm Britt.
And I'm Aimee, and welcome to the Every Season podcast.
We're here for a fun time, not a long time.
Hopefully we're here for a bit of a long time. Hey Britt.
Hey Ames.
Would you say you need some assistance when it comes to being more aware of your body?
Why? What have you got?
Well, you can download our free 7-step female body awareness kit and see if it helps.
Sweet, where?
In the show notes and on our website.
Also, in order for us to be here for a long time,
please subscribe to our podcast. Tell us, what season are you currently in at the moment?
Yeah, I love this question. I am in a rebuild season in all areas of my life. Last year, so for like 2.5 years, I travelled Australia. So we stopped working, we were just travelling, we were just living. And then this year we moved states. So we're from Vic, but we're now living in the Sunshine Coast. Ooh. So we've moved states, so we're finding new people, we're rebuilding a home, like my career, like I'm finally able to like really dive into it a lot more, that we're stable. So in every part, it's just a rebuild, and it's really exciting. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. Why the Sunshine Coast? Like, why'd you go Vic to Sunshine?
Well, I always...
I think us Vics all know that.
Like, I think Vics get it. It's just cold.
Yeah.
And
it's cold.
It's very hustle, and
yeah,
it's very driven on that hustle culture, right? Mm-hmm. And it definitely had a place in my life, and I got so much out of it, and I still love Melbourne. I really do. But just the community and the expansion and growth and just like that relaxed feel, like the Sunshine Coast, when we're traveling, we're like, if we find somewhere we like, we will just move there. And when we were here, we both went for a run along the Esplanade, and at separate times, me and my husband, and we both came back together and we were like, this is our place.
Yeah.
So that's why.
So good. Love it. So, as I mentioned earlier, Aimee and I are pretty excited to have this conversation because we've already touched on the topic a little bit. But, like, if we step back and we go from the start, can you, like, tell us, like, what even is a menstrual cycle and why do women really need to know about it?
Mm-hmm. So, the menstrual cycle is... I think a lot of women would think it's just her period. Mm. It's just that 5 days-ish that they bleed for, but your menstrual cycle is day 1 of your bleed to the day before your next bleed. So we run, unlike men, on a month on average. Every woman is going to be different, but on a monthly hormonal cycle. So our hormones fluctuate quite significantly week by week, depending on what our body needs to do for ovulation and for menstruation. So it's really important for women to know because we've been living a life that's very aligned to the 24-hour clock that men run on. But even though we do have that 24-hour sleep-wake cycle, we have this massive hormonal shift cycle that impacts all areas of our life, every single thing that you can think of. Our mood, our libido, our energy, like our output, everything. So it's really fundamental for us to be able to identify our phases and the hormonal shifts so we can live like a more abundant and optimized life.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be so many wows in this podcast.
You're like,
you'll probably find us pausing so much because we're just like, yeah. We're supposed to be the one asking the questions. We're just going to sit here.
I feel like just go, Ames, just educate us. It is, I think, like, I mean, yeah, couldn't agree with you more, you know, and I think as B had just touched on it, this is something, I mean, we're very fresh on it ourselves. And obviously why, Ames, we're excited to have you as a guest. Give us a bit of an insight into how our hormones as females like change week to week. So based off obviously that cycle, How do hormones play, and how do they change?
Yeah. So for women, for us, we have our hormonal cycle, we can group into 4 phases. So we have menstruation, which is your period. And then we have follicular phase, which is just after your period finishes up until the point of ovulation. And that's when your hormones start to rise again. And then you have ovulation, which is when you release, your egg and when you're fertile and you can conceive. And then post-ovulation is your phase called the luteal phase, which is roughly 11 to 14 days, which is when your hormones start to decrease again. So they're the 4 phases, and then each phase, I'm not going to use that analogy. It doesn't make sense. Don't worry. The 4 phases. Oh, actually, I will. Say you're like baking a cake, right? Like a banana bread, and you use the same ingredients, but you change the measurements of the ingredients, you're going to get a different version of that cake, right? So if you want it extra sweet, you're going to put in more sugar, whatever it is. That is like you as a person. Your hormone levels are changing each week, and that is going to change you as a person each week. So it's important to eat differently to support the hormones and where they're sitting in that phase for what they need to, one, support that phase, but it also supports the phase coming and the phase after that.
So my next question was actually to ask about the 4 phases of the cycle, just to kind of break it down. But like, you've kind of already done that, which is great. But like, and this could be a silly question, you might not even know the answer. But when we're talking about the 4 phases, does the similar hormones, are they always in there, but at those 4 phases, they play different roles?
Yeah. So
And
we
what would
have
they be?
two. Yeah.
Sorry.
We have, no, that's okay. I cut you off. We have 2 main sex hormones. We have estrogen and we have progesterone. We also have 2 more, which is follicular stimulating hormone and a luteal hormone, which are kind of like the lesser 2. But estrogen and progesterone are like your dominant hormones. And estrogen is going to be more prominent in your first 2 phases. So you can kind of look at estrogen like your feminine hormone. So she rises in the first 2 phases. Your progesterone will kind of just be like coasting along. And then in your luteal phase, in the second 2 phases, your progesterone will rise and also decrease in that second phase, and your estrogen will kind of coast along as well. And that is more your masculine hormone. So quite analytical and logical. That's how I like to place it. Estrogen, feminine, progesterone, masculine.
So they kind of switch.
Yeah, they switch. And when they're balanced, you should be feeling quite good. When they're not balanced, that's when we'll start to see a lot of challenges play out, PMS, cramps, all of the things.
So, I mean, as we've discussed, Britt and I'm sure, Ames, you've said it multiple times as well, and we mentioned it before. I guess the tailored approach to your cycle hasn't been something that we've been educated about, something that we've, been taught. So give us a bit of an insight when we're talking about your workouts and exercise specifically, because that's something that you do a lot of work in. How does, I guess, syncing or tailoring your workouts to your cycle change how you are feeling as an individual?
Great question. So if you were to Google right now, cycle syncing my gym workouts, the typical thing that you are going to see is menstruation, rest, follicular, let's do some cardio, ovulation, let's do some HIIT, luteal, maybe do some strength training. That is what you're going to find on Google, right? And while those 4 different movements might be, it's based on your body is more prepped for those movements in each phase, right? So you're going to get the best outcome of your running in follicular phase. In a HIIT class, you'll have more energy exertion in your ovulation phase. I don't like looking at movement like that because I think it's really unmaintainable for women to be changing what they're doing every week. What I like to do and what I tell my clients is it's just important to track your cycle and understand that you have shifts in energy. So in menstruation, yes, it's the exception, I would say rest. And there's been studies, and I can definitely attest to this, that women who rest in their menstruation phase have been shown to have an increase in their strength and their performance in their other phases. And I've done this, and my strength, honestly, skyrocketed once I took the time to just allow my body to rest during menstruation. So that's a big one.
So, Ames, do you mean like, do you mean absolutely like no movement, like just light walking and
light walking? Yeah, like stretching, things that are going to be quite nourishing. Like I wouldn't be recommending going and like running a marathon or doing a HIIT class during your period. Unless you're like an athlete and you have to stick with your regime, I get that. But it's important to understand that maybe I'm going to be more fatigued post doing that because my hormones are at their lowest in menstruation. So having to do that output is going to take a lot more for me to do. So I think it's important for women just to track their energy. I love strength training. That's my biggest thing. And how I just do it is, okay, I know that my energy and my output is highest in ovulation. I'm really going to push hard for like some heavy lifts during that phase. Coming into my luteal phase, maybe I'll drop off a little bit, or I'll just stay where I'm sitting. Like I won't try and up the weight, but I'll try and stay consistent with where I was the week before. And if I can't lift the same or it feels a lot heavier, I can have so much more grace with myself because I'm like, right, my hormones are dropping. Naturally, that means my energy is actually going to decrease too. So if I can't lift what I could the week before, that's okay. I'm cyclical. I'm not meant to have the same output every day. So it's just really about finding you and your, like what works for you and your body and how it responds to your specific cycle.
Oh, that was going to be my next thing. So like everyone's cycle is completely different. So like the likes, I can't remember Ace, but I'm pretty sure your bleeding doesn't last as long. But mine can go for like 7 days straight. So like in that sense, would I take like 7 days off? Because that's a long time for me.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So your hormones are probably going to be the lowest for the first 3 days of your bleed, and then they're going to start increasing again.
Yeah.
So it's usually the couple of days before your period. Again, everyone's different, but a couple of days before and probably the first 1 to 2 days that you're probably feeling the most heavily fatigued or impacted. And then coming into your 3rd day onwards, you might start to feel your energy rising and you're feeling better in yourself. I would start to include movement into your days then, the movement that you love doing. Like if you love moving, we obviously don't want to cut that out for a week, you know, like I love moving too. Being in the gym is my safe space. So I might just go and just see how it feels and just slowly increase.
I think you make such a good point, Ames, because I might be going off a tangent. Brett, tell me if I am.
No, it's all right. You're fine.
But I was just having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine last week because she's really found her rhythm. And I don't think she'll mind me saying this, but she's found like a really good rhythm in regards to like, looking after herself. She classifies herself as not like a born runner, but she's trained herself to really like run. She's doing the full marathon, her first ever marathon this year, and she's done half marathons and stuff. She's killing it. But she's kind of in this phase where like she's not resting. And like when we have a discussion, it's interesting you say, Ames, like I think it's so important that we need to listen to our bodies and tailor it, because like I've said to her, because I think I'd asked her to be like one of our leaders in our like community season squad chat. And she was like, oh, I don't think like I can for like what you're wanting. I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And she was like I'm not resting and like it's perfect for me. And I'm like, well, hang on a sec, girl. I'm like, if that's working for you, that's great. And she's like, like you've told me that over the years, like you rest a lot more compared to what you used to. And I said to her, yeah, but that's purely based off the fact that like I go full on. Like if I go for a run, I have to run the fastest I ever run, like I've ever run, and I think like listening to your aims for me personally, like I feel even though I've rested, if I rest for like a couple of days, still move, like walk, but then I'll go to the gym and I will exercise. I will put 100% in to that session and to that workout, and then wonder why I feel so fatigued and then feel guilty because I haven't, lifted the weights that I have, and I think like for her in particular, like she's not really struggled with her cycle. So like for her, she might not need to do that all the time. Or she, for her, she might be able to train all the time. And I think that's where, like you said, B as well, like with your 7 days, it is so important that people are tailoring to what works for them. And I think the first ever step, like you said, Ames, and what Britt and I have started to really focus on is it starts with tracking your cycle. It starts with just as simple as tracking your symptoms and just being aware of what is going on. And if something is not right or not normal, you got to listen to it,
Yes. There's so many things that I picked from that. The first one is the guilt we feel for resting, right? Like the guilt that is so ingrained in us because we have been taught to go, 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 that for most of us, and like your friend, like not everybody, but for most of us, we do need that rest, but we feel so guilty and it takes so much to retrain your brain in saying it's actually okay that I can't give 100% every single day. Like that's actually okay because of hustle culture and because we haven't been educated on actually we are cyclical and our hormones fluctuate and that's why maybe I can't give 100%. But we have so much guilt around doing that. Like, and even when I started doing this and I was taking a couple of days off the gym when I was bleeding, it was so challenging. Like that guilt that I still felt like I'm lazy. How am I going to make gains if I haven't been to the gym for 4 or 5 days? Like how? It's crazy. Like it's so wired in your brain to feel guilty for resting.
Yeah. And while we're talking about this, all three of us obviously like to go to the gym, but there's also people out there that don't, right? So like, and this is where maybe it's because they're not going to like kind of listening to their body and doing it at the right time throughout their cycle to actually get those benefits or those endorphins that they're needing to keep going. Do you know what I mean? So like, I wonder, like by what you're doing, Aimee, like you're able to help people actually want to go to the gym because they might be going at that wrong time where they're not getting satisfied and it doesn't push them to want to go. So it's interesting because like, again, Aimee, myself and you, Aimee, we all like to go to the gym. That's our release, but there's so many people out there that don't.
Yeah, very, very true. And just not being connected with your body and like what it needs like really contributes to all of that and not wanting to work out. Women, if I would say one thing is it is so important for us to weight train. Like it is so important. So if anybody's listening and they're like, I don't like the gym, it is actually so important for you to start weight training in your 20s and 30s because when you hit menopause, estrogen, which is something that you get when you're reproducing, drops off, and that's responsible for some of your bone density. So if you don't have strong bones, you haven't really worked your bones before menopause, you're going to be really fragile. And women are more prone to broken bones postmenopausal because of how fragile their bones are. And weight training is like the number one thing to help you have a more healthier life post-menopause. I know that seems so far away, but it's really not.
Well, no, Ames, I mean, and we've spoken about it so many times, Britt and I, on the potty, but you know, the fact of like the importance of like, and this is why we're having these conversations, because we're so passionate about being really, and Britt's gonna hate me saying it because it is a sales term we used to use all the time, but being proactive rather than reactive. And like,
Yes.
it is so important because like, yeah, you go, oh, I can do all these things and you can do all this, and then because you know, menopause for all of us here is you know, a long time off, so you just don't think, you know. But I think it's like when you wire your brain and switch it into, okay, cool, it's I'm doing this stuff now to help prevent all that type of stuff for later, is so important. And Ames, you make such a good point about the strength training. We've spoken about it again so many times, but Britt, you make a point of like, hey, some women may not be going because they don't feel the best, and it may be because it is the wrong time. I was someone who, and still is, that will say, whatever movement you enjoy, go do it. And that is really important. Whether or not that's dancing or doing whatever it is. But the more I dive deep into having conversations with my own network, that is true, and what you enjoy is really important, but it also needs to incorporate weight training. So it might not be that you've got to go to a, you know, fancy big old ripped out gym that has all the equipment, but it might be, you know, doing some bicep curls with the shopping bags or something like that to really help that. And yeah, Britt, like, you make such a good point, because it could be that, you know, women are going to the gym at the wrong time of their cycle. You know?
And why, like, you might not be able to answer this as well before we keep going. But why do you reckon we're not educated on the 4 phases? Like, it's not like something new, but like, why do you think, like, and what made you go and do that? Like, you know what I mean? So like, why haven't we been educated on it? Why is it on the back of the toilet doors, like, explaining it? You know what I mean? Like, I was getting a bit more information.
Like the P-types and the Euro types. Yeah,
well,
you're
true.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, why isn't it advertised everywhere?
Yeah. That's a really great question. Why we're not taught about the 4 phases. I think when, like, doctors don't know about it, it's not taught in medical school. I think I've heard nurses say that they get like a 1-day-ish kind of breakdown of the menstrual cycle when they're studying. But apart from that, it's not something that is like really in-depthly spoken about in the medical field. So all of this is all like lost knowledge. Like, our grandparents did learn about it, or like their grandparents learned about it. Ancestrally, they were so in tune with their bodies and the cycle. But I think with the shifts in the patriarchal world, it became more taboo. It became a women's problem, and they didn't really give a shit, to like put it bluntly. Like, it just wasn't prioritized. Women's health, women's reproductive health is rising like no tomorrow, but it is the most underfunded and under-researched area. Like, and I honestly wish I knew why, because it impacts everything. Infertility is on the rise. Endo and PCOS is so on the rise. Girls as young as 9 are getting those conditions now. Like, it is insane. I think women, unfortunately, when go to the doctor's clinic about it, aren't taken seriously when they're presenting with something that they can't see. And it's just been, oh, you're just one of the unlucky ones. Like, that's just unfortunate. And it's not being taken seriously. And it can take a decade for endo and PCOS to be diagnosed for somebody. Like, that's just like not okay.
No, it's not.
Yeah. And I think I got into it because I was on the pill, and I was on it from a young age, and I didn't really notice anything until I was in my early 20s. And then I was having anxiety attacks every day without fail. And I was like, what is going on? And then when I got off the pill, and I just felt like a different person. And then I read a book called In the Flow, and it was about cycle syncing, and I started to implement that. And I was just like, I was angry because I thought, why haven't we been told about this? Like, I've lived my whole life not knowing about this, and I was never living me truly. So I was super angry. I'm like, this is my career. Like, all women need to learn about this, and that's how I got into it.
I know we both wrote that down, so we
Yeah, I know.
Who's the author?
Yeah, true. The
Who's the author? Yeah.
In the Flow by Elisa Vita, I believe.
Howdy, it's us again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Don't forget to download the awareness kit and subscribe to the podcast. Have a fabulous day.